The wind doesn't sound the same when you're 40 miles from the nearest town. It doesn't whisper, it speaks. And sometimes, late at night, when the trees close in and the dark swallows every man-made light, it says things you were never meant to hear. I learned that the hard way, in a place that shouldn't exist on any map, and with people who shouldn't have trusted the silence. What you're about to hear isn't fiction. These are 7 real accounts from people who went into the woods seeking peace, and found something that had been waiting for them all along. Some of them made it out. Not all of them came back the same. If you're drawn to slow-burn horror rooted in real encounters, the kind that doesn't rely on jump scares, but leaves something behind, subscribe to the Dark Index and turn on notifications. Because some stories aren't meant to be told out loud, and the ones that are, tend to follow you. I rented the cabin on a whim. That's the part one regret the most, not the decision itself, but how casual it was. No research, no reviews, just a listing on some sketchy off-grid rental site that promised total isolation. And I wanted that. I wanted to disappear for a week, finish my thesis, and not hear a single human voice. The cabin was deep in the Adirondacks, past the paved roads, past the dirt roads, and into territory where your GPS just gives up and says, "Good luck." The owner met me at a gas station and led me in. He was older, quiet, and when he handed me the keys, he said something I didn't think much of at the time: if something knocks at night, don't answer. And don't knock back. I laughed. He didn't. The cabin was small, 1 room, a wood stove, a bed, a table. No electricity, no running water. Just a hand pump outside and a stack of firewood that looked like it had been there since the 90s. Perfect. The first 2 days were exactly what I needed. I wrote, I read, I sat on the porch and listened to nothing. The silence out there isn't peaceful, though. It's heavy. It presses on you. By the 3rd night, I realized I hadn't heard a single bird. No crickets. No animals moving through the brush. Just wind, and the occasional crack of a branch somewhere in the dark. That's when the knocking started. It was around midnight. I was lying in bed, half asleep, when I heard it, 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the side of the cabin. Not the door. The wall. Right next to my head. I froze. My first thought was an animal, maybe a raccoon or something bumping into the wood. But it came again. 3 knocks. Same rhythm. Same spot. I sat up, heart pounding, and waited. Silence. Then, from the opposite wall, 3 more knocks. I grabbed my flashlight and stood in the middle of the room, spinning slowly, trying to figure out what the hell was happening. The knocking moved. It circled the cabin. Methodically. Like something was walking around the perimeter, testing it. And then it stopped at the door. 3 knocks. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stood there, staring at the door, waiting for it to open. But it didn't. After what felt like an hour, the knocking stopped. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the table with a knife in my hand and waited for dawn. The next day, I checked the perimeter. No tracks. No prints. Nothing. But when I looked at the door, I saw something that made my stomach drop: 3 deep scratches in the wood, right where the knocking had been. Fresh. And below them, smudged into the dirt at the base of the door, was a handprint. Too large to be human. I told myself I'd leave in the morning. But that night, the knocking came again. And this time, I made a mistake. This time, I knocked back. I don't know why. Panic, maybe. Or some stupid primal instinct to assert dominance. I slammed my fist against the wall 3 times, hard, and shouted, "Leave me alone." The response was immediate. The knocking exploded, everywhere, all at once, on every wall, the door, the roof. It was deafening. And underneath it, I heard something else. Breathing. Deep, rattling breaths, like something massive was pressed against the cabin, surrounding it. I dropped to the floor and covered my ears, and I stayed there until it stopped. When I finally looked up, the door was open. I hadn't heard it open. I hadn't seen it move. But it was wide open, and the darkness outside was absolute. I slammed it shut and shoved the table against it, and I didn't move until the sun came up. I left that morning. I didn't pack. I didn't clean. I just ran to my car and drove until I hit the pavement. I tried to contact the owner, but the number was disconnected. The listing was gone. And when I looked at the map, the road I'd taken didn't exist. I still don't know what I rented. But I know one thing, it wasn't a cabin. It was bait. My family used to own a cabin in northern Michigan. My grandfather built it in the 50s, and it stayed in the family for decades. By the time I inherited it, it had been abandoned for nearly 20 years. I thought I'd fix it up, maybe turn it into a retreat or something. I should have let it rot. The cabin was in bad shape when I got there. The roof was half collapsed, the windows were broken, and the whole place smelled like mildew and dead animals. But the structure was solid, and I figured with enough work, I could make it livable. The first thing I did was clear out the debris. That's when I found the cellar door. It was hidden under a pile of old furniture in the corner of the main room, a heavy wooden hatch with a rusted iron ring. I'd been in that cabin 100 times as a kid, and I'd never seen it before. I opened it. The smell that came up was so bad I had to step outside and catch my breath. It wasn't just rot, it was something else, something sour and organic, like meat left in the sun. But I needed to see what was down there. I grabbed a flashlight and climbed down. The cellar was small, maybe 8 by 8, with dirt walls and a ceiling so low I had to crouch. In the center of the room was a wooden chair, and carved into the dirt floor around it was a circle. Inside the circle were symbols, crude, jagged, like someone had scratched them with their bare hands. And on the chair, there was a tape recorder. I don't know why I pressed play. Maybe curiosity. Maybe stupidity. But the moment I did, I heard voices. Not one voice, dozens. Overlapping, whispering, arguing. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. They were angry. And they were close. I turned off the recorder and climbed out of that cellar so fast I nearly broke my ankle. I didn't go back down that day. But that night, I heard them again. I was lying in my sleeping bag on the floor, and from somewhere below me, I heard the voices. Faint at first, then louder. Chanting. Rhythmic. And then, one voice broke through the rest. It said my name. I packed up and left the next morning. I hired a contractor to seal the cellar, told him to fill it with concrete, no questions asked. He called me a week later and said he couldn't do it. He said when his crew opened the hatch, the cellar was gone. Just solid earth. No room. No chair. No recorder. But when they sealed the hatch and left, they heard knocking from underneath. They didn't finish the job. The cabin's still there. I sold the property for almost nothing, and I didn't tell the buyer about the cellar. I don't know if that makes me a coward or a monster. But I know this, some doors aren't meant to be opened. And once you do, they never really close. I went to a cabin in the Rockies with 3 friends for a long weekend. It was a last-minute trip, one of those spontaneous things where you just throw your stuff in a car and drive. The cabin belonged to a friend of a friend, and he said we could use it for free as long as we cleaned up after ourselves. It was isolated, about an hour off the highway, surrounded by dense pine forest. Perfect for disconnecting. The first night was fine. We drank, told stories, and played cards. Standard cabin trip stuff. But around 2 in the morning, my friend Jake said he saw someone standing outside. We were sitting around the fire pit, and he just stopped mid-sentence and stared into the trees. "There's a guy out there," he said. We all turned to look, but there was nothing. Just darkness. Jake insisted he saw someone, a man, standing about 20 feet into the tree line, just watching us. We laughed it off. Told him he was drunk. But Jake wasn't the type to mess around, and I could see he was genuinely freaked out. We went inside and locked the doors, and that was that. Or so we thought. The next morning, we found footprints in the dirt around the cabin. Fresh ones. They circled the building, slow, deliberate steps, like someone had been pacing around us while we slept. And at one of the windows, there was a smudge on the glass. A handprint. From the outside. We checked the perimeter, but there was no car, no camp, no sign of anyone nearby. Just those footprints, leading into the woods and disappearing. That night, we saw him. All of us. We were inside, playing a board game, when someone knocked on the door. Not a polite knock, a slow, heavy pounding, like someone was using the side of their fist. We froze. No one said a word. Then, through the window next to the door, we saw him. A man. Tall, wearing dark clothes, standing perfectly still. His face was pressed against the glass, but we couldn't make out his features. Just a silhouette. He didn't move. Didn't knock again. Just stood there. For minutes. We didn't open the door. We didn't even go near it. We just backed into the farthest corner of the cabin and waited. Eventually, he stepped back and disappeared into the trees. We left at first light. Didn't pack, didn't clean, just got in the car and drove. About halfway down the mountain, we passed a ranger station, and Jake insisted we stop and report it. The ranger listened to our story, nodded, and then asked us which cabin we'd been staying at. When we told him, his face went pale. He said that the cabin had been abandoned for 3 years. The owner died in a hiking accident, and no one had been inside since. We showed him the key. He said it shouldn't exist. The locks had been changed after the owner's death. I still have that key. And sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear knocking. If you've ever experienced something you still can't explain, in the woods, on an empty road, or in a place that felt wrong, share it in the comments. Your experience may become the next entry in the Dark Index. Or it may already be written there. I went to a cabin in Vermont with my girlfriend for our anniversary. It was supposed to be romantic, candles, wine, no cell service, just the two of us. The cabin was beautiful, right on the edge of a lake, surrounded by birch trees. The kind of place you see in magazines. We checked in on a Friday afternoon, and the owner gave us a quick tour. Everything was perfect. Except for one thing. As he was leaving, he mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that we shouldn't go into the basement. He said the stairs were rotted and it wasn't safe. Fair enough. We didn't think about it again. That first night, we stayed up late, talking and drinking by the fire. Around midnight, my girlfriend went to the bathroom, and I heard her scream. I ran in, and she was standing at the window, pale, shaking. She said she saw a little girl outside, standing in the trees, staring at the cabin. I looked, but there was nothing. I told her it was probably a reflection or a trick of the light. But she wasn't convinced. The next night, I saw her too. I was washing dishes at the kitchen sink when I glanced out the window, and there she was, a girl, maybe 8 or 9, standing at the edge of the tree line. She was wearing a white dress, and her hair was long and tangled. She wasn't moving. Just staring. Directly at me. I blinked, and she was gone. I didn't tell my girlfriend. I didn't want to scare her. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that girl, about how still she was, how wrong she looked. Around 3 in the morning, I heard footsteps. Soft, slow footsteps. coming from below us. From the basement. I got up and checked the door. It was locked. But the footsteps continued. Up and down, like someone pacing. I woke my girlfriend, and we sat there, listening, until the sun came up. When we checked the basement door in the morning, it was still locked. But when I looked through the keyhole, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A child's handprint. On the inside of the door. In the dust. We left that day. Didn't ask for a refund, didn't explain. We just left. Later, I did some research on the property. Turns out, in the 90s, a family rented that cabin. They had a daughter. She went missing during their stay. They found her 3 days later. In the lake. But here's the thing, her body was never in the water. It was in the basement. Locked in. The official story was that she wandered down, the door closed behind her, and no one heard her screaming. I don't believe that. I think someone heard her. I think they just didn't let her out. I'm a land surveyor. My job is to map property lines, check coordinates, document terrain. I work alone most of the time, and I've been to some remote places. But nothing prepared me for what I found in the Ozarks. I was hired to survey a plot of land that was being sold, about 80 acres of dense forest, no structures listed on the deed. But when I got out there and started walking the perimeter, I found a cabin. It wasn't on the map. It wasn't on the satellite images. It was just there, sitting in a clearing, like it had always been there. The cabin was old, logs darkened with age, a stone chimney, a sagging porch. But it looked maintained. No broken windows, no collapsed roof. I knocked, but no one answered. I tried the door. It was unlocked. Inside, the cabin was furnished. A table, chairs, a bed with a quilt. A kettle on the stove. Everything is covered in a thin layer of dust, but otherwise untouched. It felt like someone had just stepped out and never come back. I took photos, documented the coordinates, and marked it on my map. When I got back to my truck, I checked the GPS. According to the system, there was no cabin. Just empty forest. I figured it was a glitch. I submitted my report and moved on. 2 weeks later, I got a call from the client. He said I'd made a mistake. He'd gone to the property to check it out, and there was no cabin. I insisted I'd seen it, even sent him the photos. He said he was standing in the exact spot I'd marked, and there was nothing there. Just trees. I went back. I had the coordinates. I had the photos. I knew exactly where it was. But when I got there, the clearing was gone. The cabin was gone. Just unbroken forest, like it had never existed. I thought I was losing my mind. But then I found something. A stone, half buried in the dirt, with a carving on it. The same design I'd seen on the cabin's door. I dug it up and took it with me. That night, I had a dream. I was back at the cabin, but it was different. The door was open. Inside, a woman was sitting at the table, staring at me. She didn't speak, but I knew what she wanted. She wanted me to stay. I woke up in a cold sweat. The stone was on my nightstand. I hadn't taken it out of my truck. I threw it in a river the next day. I've never been back to the Ozarks. And I've never found that cabin on any map. But sometimes, late at night, I dream about it. And in the dream, the door is always open. My uncle left me in his cabin when he died. I didn't know him well, he was a recluse, lived alone in the woods for the last 30 years of his life. The cabin was in Oregon, deep in the Cascade Range, and I'd never been there. The lawyer said it was mine, along with everything inside. I figured I'd check it out, see if there was anything worth keeping, and then sell the place. I wasn't prepared for what I found. The cabin was larger than I expected, 2 stories, with a loft and a basement. But what struck me immediately was how empty it was. No furniture. No personal belongings. Just bare walls and floors. Except for one room. The loft. It was filled with photographs. Hundreds of them. Pinned to the walls, spread across the floor, stacked in piles. All of them were of the same thing, the woods around the cabin. Trees. Trails. Clearings. But there was something wrong with them. In every photograph, in the background, barely visible, was a figure. A person. Standing in the trees, always facing the camera. At first, I thought it was my uncle, maybe doing some kind of art project. But the more I looked, the more I realized the figure was the same in every photo. Same height. Same posture. Same dark clothing. And my uncle wasn't in any of them. I found his camera in the corner of the room. It was old, a film camera from the 70s. I opened it, and there was still a roll of film inside. I don't know why I developed it. Maybe morbid curiosity. Maybe I needed to understand. But when I got the photos back, I wished I hadn't. The roll was full of pictures of the cabin. Exterior shots, taken from different angles, at different times of day. But in every single one, there was someone in the window. A face. Pressed against the glass. Looking out. It wasn't my uncle. It was the figure from the other photos. And in the last picture on the roll, the figure wasn't in the window. It was standing behind the camera. I could see its reflection in the glass. I burned the photos. I burned the camera. And I sold the cabin to the first person who made an offer. I didn't tell them about the loft. I didn't tell them about the figure. But sometimes, I wonder if it's still there. Waiting. Watching. Taking pictures of whoever comes next. I'm a radio operator. Ham radio, mostly, it's a hobby, something I do late at night when I can't sleep. I have a cabin in Montana where I go to get away from everything, and I set up a small station there. It's off-grid, solar-powered, perfect for picking up distant signals. Most of what I hear is mundane, weather reports, truckers, the occasional shortwave broadcast from another country. But one night, I picked up something different. It was a voice. A man. Speaking slowly, deliberately. He was reading coordinates. Just numbers. No context. No explanation. I wrote them down out of curiosity. When I looked them up, they pointed to a location about 10 miles from my cabin. Middle of nowhere. Deep forest. I didn't think much of it until the next night, when I heard the broadcast again. Same voice. Same coordinates. But this time, he added something at the end. He said, "If you're listening, don't come. Stay away." I should have listened. But I'm an idiot, and I was curious. I hiked out to the coordinates the next morning. It took me 3 hours to get there, and when I arrived, I found a clearing. In the center of the clearing was a tent. Old, torn, like it had been there for years. Inside, there was a radio. Still on. Still transmitting. And next to it, a journal. I read it. I wish I hadn't. The journal belonged to a man who'd come to the area 15 years earlier. He was a researcher, studying something he called the signal. He believed there was a frequency in these woods, something old, something that predated human settlement. He spent months trying to isolate it, and eventually, he did. But the signal wasn't random. It was a voice. And the voice was calling. He wrote that once you heard it, it didn't stop. It followed you. Everywhere. In your head. In your dreams. And the only way to make it stop was to go back to the source. To the clearing. I don't know what happened to him. But I know this, I heard the signal. And now it won't leave me alone. Remember this, Not everything that calls out to you wants you to come back. Follow the dark index for more accounts pulled from places that don't show up on maps, and don't always let people leave unchanged.